Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Vanderpool. We're going to move on from civil liberties, which are people's freedoms and their protections against government, to civil rights, which talks about how the government can actively promote equality in a society. Now, very key to civil rights is the 14th Amendment. It forbids any state to deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So no matter what your sex is, your race, your ethnicity, your age, if you have a disability, whatever your sexual preference is, the laws apply equally to everyone. Another important aspect of the 14th Amendment is it states that the states can't deprive people of life, liberty, and property without due process of law. So now we're going to take a look at civil rights history and apply it to various groups. And we'll start off with African Americans. So there's a lot of important concepts, a lot of important things that have happened in the civil rights history of African Americans. You had Jim Crow laws, which of course created a segregated community. It's also important to understand the difference between de jure segregation and de facto segregation. So Jim Crow laws would be an example of de jure segregation, segregation by law. De facto segregation, by reality, is the type of segregation that happens not necessarily by law, but just tends to happen sociologically. Like, for example, you might have communities that tend to be more African American. You have Plessy versus Ferguson, which stated that separate but equal is constitutional. The NAACP, of course, was a major group that pushed for the rights of African Americans. Brown versus Board of Education overturns Plessy, says that separate but equal is unconstitutional. And you have various acts, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that says there's no discrimination based on race, color, religion, etc. The 24th Amendment did away with the poll tax. And then the Voting Rights Act of 1965 prohibited racial discrimination in voting. All right, so let's take a look at the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Barred discrimination in voting, in public accommodations, in schools, allowed government to force desegregation through litigation, and it said there can't be discrimination in employment and federal funds, like the distribution of federal scholarships, for example. Now, let's go ahead and move on to Native Americans. Now, over time, there's been a push for more and more sovereignty on reservations on Native American land. For example, gambling operation rights. Article 1, Section 8 speaks very closely to this when it says the Commerce Clause gives Congress the right to regulate Indian tribes. And this All right, so let's go with Latino and Latina rights. Those could be broken down into various ethnicities. You've got Mexican, who often very much care about things like bilingual education programs, immigration. You have Puerto Ricans. Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth of the United States. Citizens can move freely back and forth. The Puerto Ricans are not represented in Congress, and they don't have to pay federal income tax. Now, Cubans are another Latino-Latina group there. In the 1960s, lots of Cubans fled communist takeover by Fidel Castro. And in the 1990s, the Clinton administration implemented what was called a wet foot, dry foot policy, which basically says that if these immigrants made it to land, thus dry foot, they would be able to stay in the United States wet foot. If they were caught on water, they'd be sent back. And then, of course, you have Central and South Americans. Central South America has various political troubles driving people to the U.S., and these people, of course, face similar bilingual and immigration issues. Now, moving on to Asian Americans. Various events have happened over the course of Asian American civil rights history. You have the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, basically prohibited the immigration of Chinese labor, lasted through World War II there. You had the internment camps of World War II. Korematsu versus the United States from 1944 said that internment camps are unconstitutional, and this has not been overturned, amazingly enough. In the 1980s, you saw a movement for reparations for internment. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next video.